Tuesday night, TMBS, we had Malika Jabali on. She was in Kenosha when Rittenhouse murdered two people. So it's working its way through the courts. And I'm not relying on the courts or hopeful about that case. I don't know. Binder, do you know about that? What do you expect about Rittenhouse? Have you been following that?
I mean, I was going to talk more in the second half if we have time, but I think, I think personally, I think he murdered two people, and there's some gray area, I guess, in certain, depending on the law, but I do think the self-defense defense from what they're going to argue could potentially work. It probably, how things work generally, I think it probably will. Wisconsin isn't a stand your ground state, so they're going to have to work a little bit harder, but. Yeah, it all depends on the jury, really. It's really hard to speculate on that one. I would argue I'm not a lawyer, but if I was the prosecutor, I would argue that the very, and there's video that shows that him being there with his gun was the agitation. It was agitating protesters. Absolutely. And it heightened their, how they felt. And that's, if he didn't have a gun, this wouldn't have ever happened. They would have never even approached him.
The Daily Caller guy caught him on video. Somebody saying, "You're threatening us with your gun." I mean, and then there was also a report in the USA Today. He among the militia guys. He was more agitative than usual, and people noted him for that prior to him murdering people.
Right. There's a lot of video. There's a lot. Well, we can talk about more in the second half, but there's a lot of video out there that shows that he was going around inserting himself in the protests where the other militia people were sort of just hanging around this business they were supposedly guarding. And he was really among the protesters going around asking them, anyone need medical attention? Like, he can say he was trying to help people, but no one wants medical attention from the group that's there to oppose them. I mean, no one wants his help. I mean, it was clearly to agitate.
There's Antifa medics all around. They don't get a pass because there's asking people like from the right. They don't get a pass. Like, I guess that's a medic Antifa guy. That's one that I'm okay with, right? Like,
right?
It was clearly just a cover, to the point where, like in the Daily Caller video I mentioned, like he goes up to these guys, said, "First aid" or whatever, and the guy's like, "First aid? You were just telling me to get out of the car with your gun. What are you talking about, first aid?"
Right. My question is, I think the first person he shot will be the one that sort of determines the rest of it, unfortunately. And I think that's the one where he probably has the best case for self-defense, because there was a confrontation. They were like, it wasn't the guy he shot was confronting him. He was unarmed. So the question is going to be, what is the appropriate use of force? I think that's going to be the argument there. Mm-hmm. But if self-defense is there, then the question is, do the two people who saw that he just shot someone and see someone with a gun walking around, do they then have, anyone else would be able to see, someone just shot someone, I'm going to take them down, and they'd be heralded as a hero.
Exactly. That's going to be shooter. We've been told to rush the shooter.
Right. So that's I think that's where I think it's going to be an interesting case. And I wish it wasn't going to be an interesting case, because it should be a pretty clear case of someone literally going there with the intent to at least hurt someone, and he ended up killing two people.
Yeah.
But the people who were able to get in between him and everybody else, the people who rushed to disarm him, those people are heroes. Mm-hmm. And they should be remembered much more so than he should. And it bothers me that everybody knows this Rittenhouse guy's name, but not theirs.
Yeah.
The second guy, the third overall guy he shot, the one guy who was armed and was approaching him with a handgun, he survived. He is alive. Mm-hmm. And the right has been smeared. Well, the right's been smearing all three of them.
Yeah. On that guy, I've been mentioning this for a while, but there's this USA Today article that it's just such a this is vital article to read on this. And it goes into, the guy who had the gun that was shot, like that's a normal thing for medics to have is handguns. He wasn't, but like he pulled it out after there had been shooting happening. Like that's the whole point you bring a handgun to those things, right?
And the thing is, too, there's video. I mean, I've poured over this. I was going to use it in the plug, so I won't say it yet. There's something I have to promote to where I wrote about this. But there is lots of still photos and video that show that the medic with the handgun approaches Rittenhouse behind the guy with the skateboard. The guy with the skateboard gets shot and stumbles off and falls and dies at the scene. And in that moment where this guy with the skateboard stumbles off, the guy with the medic with the handgun, I believe his last name is very hard to pronounce. It's something like Grazenkrautz. He hesitates. He puts his hands in the air and holds the gun up. And I don't know if he was worried about his own life or he just wasn't sure if he could actually end up pulling the trigger, but he hesitated. So he really didn't want to do whatever he felt like he had to do. So I think that might be something prosecutors could use, the idea that even when they tried to stop this guy, they didn't want to hurt anyone, even the guy who they just saw shoot someone else.
Yeah, it was Gage Grosskreutz, I think. And
right.
Yeah, he's a medic. And that, it is disgusting that they're painting him as some kind of like agitator. And that's what Rittenhouse was.
Right.
This guy was actually there as a medic. But yeah, I would just recommend this USA Today, one of the best pieces by Gina Barton. That's the shooter. Witnesses described the night Kyle Rittenhouse opened fire in Kenosha. I'll clip that actually. So if you want to plug what you have to plug, I'll include that in the clip here too, Binder, because I feel like
okay.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. So yeah, I launched a newsletter. It's a free newsletter called you can find it at missinfo.com. It just launched this week. And the first article is me breaking down all the most common right-wing, and some of them not so common. Some of them are a little bit, you have to look a little bit harder for, but they're out there. The most common right-wing talking points about the shooting. And I debunk a lot of them because a lot of it's based on misinformation. And a lot of the right talking points obviously are to defend Kyle Rittenhouse for shooting people and to smear the people who he shot. And I broke it down in there. And on the podcast, on my show, youtube.com/Matt Binder tonight at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. And later on as a podcast at doomedpod.com, I will break down that piece and talk about these points of misinformation and debunk them. So you could go there on YouTube, check out the podcast, or read the newsletter at missinfo.com. And the live stuff will happen tonight at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time.